My wife lied about her salary while spending mine on luxury. Then she cheated. So I divorced quietly and left her with nothing but regret. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and I used to believe marriage meant partnership. I grew up in a modest working-class home where you shared what you had, even if it wasn't much. My dad was a mechanic, my mom worked part-time at a bakery, and they taught me that hard work was the backbone of any relationship. When I married Candace, I thought I was living that lesson. I work with my hands, construction mostly, and there's a kind of honest pride in coming home dirty and tired, but knowing you've earned every dollar. I thought she respected that. I met Candace at a friend's birthday party. She was everything I wasn't: polished, ambitious, marketing job at a big firm, perfectly pressed suits, and bright lipstick that seemed to light up the room. She laughed at my jokes, asked about my work like she was genuinely interested. "It's rare to meet someone so grounded," she'd said, tucking her hair behind her ear. I remember the way her perfume mixed with the scent of vanilla candles at the party. It made me feel like I'd stepped into a world bigger than mine. From the beginning, she painted a picture of us as equals. "We'll split everything 50-50, she'd promised over cheap Chinese takeout one night, chopsticks poised like punctuation marks. No one should carry the other, and I believed her. At first, it felt like we were a team, rent together, groceries together, building a future side by side. But even in those early days, the cracks were there. When her car needed repairs, I paid. When she wanted a weekend trip, I covered it just this once. She'd smile, kiss my cheek, and say, 'We'll even it out later.' And I kept telling myself that's what couples do, help each other out. I didn't know it then, but that help was already a habit she'd never break. And I'd never question, at least not yet. It started so subtly that I almost didn't notice. At first, it was just a new handbag. Nothing too flashy, just nicer than the ones she used to carry. Then it was spa trips with her coworkers, posted on Instagram with captions like "Self-Care Sundays." Soon our date nights shifted from cheap diners to candle-lit restaurants where the bill equaled half my weekly paycheck. Each time I'd glance at the prices, she'd smile and wave it off. "Don't worry," she'd say, sliding the leather check holder toward me. I got a raise. I can finally treat myself. I wanted to believe her. She worked hard, and if she'd earned more, she deserved a few nice things, right? But as her spending grew, my bank account shrank. Rent, utilities, groceries, the everyday stuff still landed mostly on my shoulders. "You're so good at managing money," she'd tease one night as we sat on the couch, her scrolling through online boutiques, me calculating our monthly budget. "I'm handling my share, babe, relax." I told myself this was just a phase. Relationships go through uneven seasons. Maybe once her big project at work finished, she'd pitch in more. So I picked up extra shifts, sometimes working weekends, telling myself I was investing in us. My hands were cracked from cold cement, my back aching, but when I came home, she'd be in silk pajamas, showing me a new pair of heels she couldn't pass up. There was a growing gap between us, one I couldn't name yet. I was clipping coupons and eating leftovers for lunch while she was sipping champagne with colleagues. I kept thinking, if she says she's handling it, she must be. But sometimes, when she turned away to answer a text or swipe her card, I'd feel this tiny pulse of unease in my gut. Like I was standing on a floor that wasn't as solid as I thought. I didn't know it then. But that unease was the first crack in everything we'd built. It was the joint savings account that finally made me pause. We'd opened it together a year into our marriage, promising to build a nest egg, our future house, a car upgrade, maybe even a honeymoon trip we never took. I used to log in every Friday, proud of the steady climb. But one morning, half asleep before work, I checked and nearly dropped my phone. The balance had dipped thousands in just a few weeks. At breakfast, I asked, trying to keep my voice casual, "Hey, have you been pulling from savings?" "It's down a lot." She didn't look up from buttering her toast. "Emergency expenses," she said breezily. "Household stuff, repairs, you know how it is." She reached over to squeeze my hand like that made it better. "Don't stress, babe. I've got it handled," but something about the ease in her tone made my stomach knot. I started tracking every bill, every payment, every receipt. I'd stay up late with a notepad, scribbling numbers like I was studying for an exam. I stopped grabbing takeout on lunch breaks, packed peanut butter sandwiches instead, even skipped meals some days just to keep our expenses lower. Meanwhile, her world didn't change at all. On Instagram, she was still living her best life. Vacation throwbacks with captions like "miss this view," New handbags gleaming in soft morning light, cocktails in places I'd never been. Friends commented with heart emojis and goals, and every time I saw it, I felt smaller. Not just broke, but hollow. One night, after a double shift, I came home and she was sprawled on the couch in a cashmere robe, scrolling her phone. "You okay?" she asked without looking up. And for a second I wanted to scream, "No, I'm not okay. I'm working myself raw while you drain us dry." But instead I just nodded, because that's what I'd been doing for months. Nodding, believing, hoping. Somewhere along the line, I had stopped feeling like a husband. I was a walking wallet, a bank account with a heartbeat. And she didn't seem to notice, or worse, she did. It happened on a Sunday. I was doing laundry, same as always, sorting whites from colors, digging through pockets out of habit. I never expected to find anything more than a crumpled receipt or a forgotten lip balm. But that day, I pulled out a folded envelope from one of her blazer pockets. It was a recent pay stub. I don't know why I looked at it. Maybe part of me already knew. Maybe I'd been waiting for a crack to show. I unfolded the paper slowly, like I was handling something dangerous. And then I saw it. The number at the bottom. My chest tightened. She made almost twice what she told me. For years, she'd downplayed her earnings. Said marketing didn't pay that well unless you were in upper management. She'd always acted like she was barely scraping by, letting me shoulder most of the bills. I remember her laughing once, saying, "I'm not exactly rolling in it, babe. You know how it is." And I believed her. But this was calculated. Not a misunderstanding. A full-blown lie. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the stub like it was a confession letter. All those late nights I spent working overtime, all the times I skipped things I wanted just to keep us afloat. While she was sitting on a hidden pile of money, she never once said, "Let me cover rent this month." Never offered to split utilities evenly. Every spa trip, every bottle of wine, every luxury bag, paid for while I quietly drowned. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Something told me this wasn't the end of it. If she could lie about money this easily, what else was she hiding? So I tucked the stub away in my drawer, and I smiled like nothing had changed. But inside, something had broken, and I wasn't sure it could be fixed. After finding that pay stub, I couldn't sit still. My brain kept spinning, connecting dots I'd ignored for years. I waited until she was at a late networking dinner and pulled out my laptop. I logged into our shared bank account and opened up the statements from the last 12 months, then the 12 before that. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. But then I saw it. Regular transfers, small ones at first, then larger amounts, going out to an unfamiliar account. Not credit card payments, not bills, just generic descriptions like transfer to external. I copied down the numbers and cross-checked dates. The pattern was clear. She'd been siphoning money out of our joint account since the second year of our marriage, quietly, systematically. The same woman who stood in our kitchen just last week, telling me she might need help with rent this month because she was running low. The same woman who once cried because I hesitated to co-sign a new card for her. I sat there in the dark, lit only by the screen, feeling like the biggest fool alive. All those extra shifts, the vacations I said no to, the dreams I put on hold so we could stay afloat. Meanwhile, she'd been padding a secret account like an exit plan. I wasn't just hurt. I was humiliated. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall. For the first time, I saw our marriage not as a partnership, but as a business transaction where only one of us was profiting. But I didn't lash out. I didn't throw accusations. I just opened a folder on my desktop and labeled it Receipts. From that night on, I started saving everything. Screenshots, statements, timestamps. Because now I knew this wasn't carelessness. This was intentional, and I needed to be just as calculated. A week later, the kitchen faucet started leaking. It wasn't urgent, but it was loud, dripping like a metronome for the chaos in my head. I saw it as a test. That night over dinner, I brought it up casually. "Hey, the sink's acting up again. Think you could cover the plumber this time?" Candace barely looked up from her phone. "Ugh, I wish. I'm flat broke this month. Rent and credit cards wiped me out." She even threw in a dramatic sigh for effect. It never ends. I stared at her, nodding, chewing slowly, pretending to believe her. But I already knew she had thousands tucked away in her secret account. I knew she was earning 6 figures while I still patched drywall for a living. "Work treating you okay?" I asked, just to see what she'd say. She perked up. "Meh, same old. Still waiting on that raise, but fingers crossed for the next quarter. And that was it. No flicker of guilt. No hesitation. Just another lie, smooth as silk. That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, lazy circles. It wasn't the money that kept me up, it was the erosion of trust. She didn't just lie about her paycheck. She lied about her circumstances, her needs, her struggle. She painted herself as the overworked, underpaid wife just trying to survive, while I played the dependable fool in the background, bleeding hours of my life into overtime shifts so she could sip lattes and scroll designer boutiques. This wasn't just financial deception. It was emotional fraud. A performance. And in that quiet, brutal moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. She wasn't just hiding money. She was hiding who she really was. It was a Thursday night when she told me she had drinks with coworkers. "Just a quick happy hour," she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. "You don't have to wait up." I smiled like usual. Told her to have fun. But something in her voice didn't sit right. It was too rehearsed, like she'd already said it a dozen times in her head. I waited 10 minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and followed her car. I kept my headlights off until I got far enough back. It felt crazy. I'd never done anything like that in my life. But I needed answers. Not from her mouth, but from the truth she kept slipping past me. She didn't head downtown where the usual bars were. She took a detour to the edge of the city, to a luxury hotel with glowing blue lights and valet parking. I pulled into a lot across the street and watched from behind my windshield, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. She walked inside alone. I stayed parked for what felt like hours, watching people come and go. At one point, I almost convinced myself I was overreacting, that maybe there was a work event here, some client dinner. But then, nearly an hour later, she walked out, not alone. A man stepped out beside her. Mid-40s, expensive suit, hand resting just a little too comfortably on the small of her back. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The closeness, the laughter, the way she tilted her head toward him like she used to do with me, it said everything. I grabbed my phone and took photos. Not out of revenge. Out of survival. I needed proof, not just for legal reasons, but to remind myself later that I hadn't imagined it. She got into his car. I stayed frozen in mine, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt truly invisible. I couldn't sleep that night. Her betrayal looped in my head like static, her laughter with him, the way she leaned in close like they were something real. I stared at the blurry photos on my phone until dawn, wondering who the hell this man was. The next day, while she was at work, I did what any broken man with a Wi-Fi signal would do. I searched. It didn't take long. A tagged photo from her company's LinkedIn page, a corporate holiday party from last year. There he was, standing next to her, arms slung around her shoulder like they'd done it 100 times. Name, Daniel Prescott. Title, Regional Director, married, kids, corner office. And suddenly, everything clicked, the mysterious raises. The new clients she bragged about landing. The last-minute trips that weren't on the calendar. All the late-night strategy dinners she swore were part of the job. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was using him, leveraging the affair to boost her position. While I was breaking my back pouring cement and counting coupons, she was cozying up to a married executive, securing promotions and bonuses she claimed were from hard work. It hit me like a punch to the chest. Not just betrayal, but emasculation. I wasn't the partner she built with. I was the placeholder. The one who kept the lights on while she maneuvered her way up behind closed doors. I sat on the floor of our bedroom that night, surrounded by evidence I never wanted. The pay stub, the bank transfers, the photos, the name, the job title. Still, I said nothing. No confrontation. No accusations, because now I wasn't just suspicious. I was sure, and if I was going to burn this down, I needed more gasoline. I didn't want to believe I needed help. But after everything I'd uncovered, it was clear. This wasn't just a slip or a one-time lapse in judgment. This was something deeper, something rehearsed. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Leon. Ex-cop, quiet voice, eyes that didn't blink much. I handed him a folder with everything I'd gathered, photos, pay stubs, account numbers, and said, "I need the truth. The full thing. No sugarcoating." He nodded once. "Give me a few weeks. Those weeks crawled by like molasses. I kept playing my role, kissing her goodbye in the mornings, pretending to be busy on weekends while she went on retreats and conferences. Every lie she told, I let her say it with a smile. Exactly 29 days later, Leon slid a manila envelope across the diner table. I didn't open it there. I waited until I got home. Inside, hotel check-ins with matching dates to her work trips. Photos. Her and Daniel together at restaurants, holding hands in parking garages, entering the same hotel room at 10:47 p.m. and not leaving until dawn. Then came the texts. Leon had managed to mirror activity from a second phone registered in her name, one I didn't know existed. The messages were vivid. Not just romantic, but strategic. She'd talk about bonuses, timing, future promotions. She had built an entirely separate life with this man, emotionally, sexually, even professionally. It wasn't just cheating. It was manipulation, a slow, careful betrayal crafted over years. I sat in silence with the envelope open on the coffee table, feeling like I'd just read the autopsy report of my own marriage. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was disgusted, and I knew without a doubt that this wasn't about love, it was about control. The day after I got the PI's report, I made an appointment with a lawyer, quietly, no calls from home, no digital trail. I paid cash and told no one, not even my closest friend. Her name was Ms. Dalton, sharp, calm, and blunt in a way that made me feel like I wasn't crazy. I laid out everything: the financial manipulation, the secret account, the affair with her boss, the second phone. She didn't flinch. "You've got leverage," she said, flipping through the documents. She committed fraud, lied about income, spent joint funds without disclosure. "And you've been paying 80% of the household expenses?" "Sometimes more," I muttered. "Good," she replied, as if my suffering was ammunition. "That'll work in our favor." That same week, I rerouted my direct deposit to a private checking account under my name only. I opened a P.O. box for legal mail, picked up a second phone, and began quietly separating my life from hers. At night, I still laid beside her. She'd kiss my cheek, talk about office gossip, ask if I could spot her for her half of the internet bill. I played along, nodding like nothing had changed, like I wasn't already planning my escape. The love had died months ago, maybe longer. But now even the illusion was gone. All I saw when I looked at her was a stranger who wore a mask for years while I bent over backwards for a future she was never really building with me. Every moment became strategy. What to pack, where to store documents, who to alert. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for freedom, clean, legal, and undeniable. I just had to wait for the right moment. And when it came, I'd be gone before she even noticed the door closing. Her birthday was coming up, and I had suggested something small. Dinner at her favorite restaurant, maybe a weekend drive out to the lake. Quiet, personal, real. But she laughed like I'd told a joke. "Come on," she said, tossing her curls over her shoulder. "This year needs to be big." I earned it, and just like that, the party planning started. She booked a private room at an upscale rooftop lounge, hired a photographer, arranged a catered sushi spread, champagne tower, the whole 9 yards. I watched her plan it like she was starring in her own movie, never once asking if we could afford it. She used my credit card to cover most of it. I hadn't given her permission, but of course, she had the number memorized. The night of the party, I stood in the corner, drink in hand, watching her hold court in a dress that probably cost more than my entire outfit. Her friends, perfect teeth, perfect hands, fake laughter, surrounded her like petals on a flower. And then, as the music lowered for a toast, she clinked her glass and said, "And shout out to my husband who keeps telling me to be frugal. He's not cheap, he's just allergic to joy." Laughter erupted around me. I felt my face flush, my fists tighten, but I smiled. Raised my glass, nodded along. I went home early, told her I had a headache. She barely noticed. The next morning, while she was at a spa recovery day, I packed everything. Clothes, documents, electronics, the evidence folder, my passport, the framed photo of my mom I kept hidden in the closet. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam the door. I just walked out with everything that mattered. Because if I stayed one more day, I knew I'd start to hate myself for letting her keep rewriting what love was supposed to look like. She could keep the party. I was taking my life back. She came home around 5 p.m., spa bag in one hand, half-eaten smoothie in the other. I wasn't there to see it, but I can picture the moment like I'd watched it through a movie screen. First, she probably called out my name. Then maybe she walked into the bedroom, only to find the closet stripped bare on my side. Drawers empty. Shoes gone, my shaving kit. The charger she always borrowed, and on the kitchen counter, a manila envelope with the divorce papers inside, sealed with a sticky note that simply said, "This is what truth looks like." My phone vibrated for hours. First came the texts. "Where are you? What is this? You're overreacting. Let's talk. You don't just walk out. Answer me!" Then the calls, over and over. I didn't pick up. I watched her name flash across the screen like a ghost I'd finally exorcised. By the next morning, she switched tactics. "We can fix this. I'll be better. I didn't mean to hurt you." Then, just as quickly, "You'll regret this. You're ruining everything." I didn't say a word. By noon, the messages changed tone again. Panic. "Why is my card declined? Did you touch the accounts? What's happening with the savings?" I had already moved my money. Froze the joint credit cards. Closed everything she could access. Her second account. Yeah, the lawyer knew about that too. She was on her own. And for the first time since we'd met, she had no control. No backup plan. No sweet-talking her way out. Just a quiet apartment filled with luxury things she could no longer afford. And the echo of someone who finally chose himself over her illusions. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt done. She begged me to meet. Said she deserved a chance to explain. At first, I ignored her. But my lawyer, Ms. Dalton, suggested otherwise. "Let her talk," she said, straightening her blazer. "Just don't let her twist it." We met at her firm's conference room. Neutral ground. She showed up late, sunglasses on indoors, like the world was too bright for her broken soul. I was already seated, lawyer at my side, calm as stone. She walked in with a shaky smile. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, like this was a misunderstanding, not a demolition. She launched right into it. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I was confused. I felt unseen. "You were always working, always tired. Daniel made me feel wanted," her voice cracked on cue. "It wasn't about the money. It was about connection." She looked at me, searching for softness. I lost myself somewhere. I just wanted to feel alive again. I said nothing, just reached into my folder and slid the PI's photos across the table. Her with Daniel, wrapped around him like she forgot I ever existed. Hotel timestamps, dinner bills, phone records. Her eyes darted over the pages. And then she cracked. Shoulders hunched, hand over her mouth, tears spilling. "I'm sorry." I didn't know how to stop. I thought we'd figure it out eventually. Ms. Dalton leaned back, expression unreadable. I stared at the woman across from me and realized I felt nothing, no anger. No satisfaction. Just distance, I finally spoke. Just one sentence. You don't lie, cheat, and spend someone's soul, and then cry when they walk away. Her sobbing stopped like someone flipped a switch. She looked stunned. Like for the first time, she couldn't charm her way back in. I stood up, nodded to my lawyer, and walked out. She had said her piece, but mine was already in motion, and it was permanent. The fallout didn't come all at once. It dripped in slow, humiliating waves. Her friends, those glossy, champagne-sipping women who used to fill our living room with laughter, started to fade away. Not because they were shocked by the affair, but because many of them already knew. Turns out secrets don't stay secret for long in tight social circles. Some had even covered for her, silently excusing the betrayal like it was a bad haircut that would grow out eventually. But now that everything was public, it was awkward, embarrassing, risky. They stopped answering her texts. Group chats dried up. Brunch invitations stopped coming. Then came Daniel, her precious regional director. He began pulling away too. Not dramatically, just slowly enough to keep his hands clean. HR had gotten a whiff of something inappropriate, and his mentorship of Candace was starting to look like a liability. He didn't want a scandal. He didn't want her. He ghosted her. Just like that, within 2 months she had to vacate the condo. She couldn't afford the rent on her own, not with her reputation quietly rotting from the inside. The apartment she moved into was half the size, with no valet, no balcony, no skyline view, just a leaky faucet and paper-thin walls. The life she built on lies and image was crumbling, and not with a bang, but with a whimper. She tried reaching out to me again. From a new number. "I miss us," the message read. I didn't know what I had until it was gone. I didn't open it. Didn't read past the preview. She was blocked everywhere. Phone, email, socials. I'd made sure of that, because you can only twist someone's love for so long before it stops bending and starts breaking, and I didn't owe her the sound of that break. My new apartment isn't much. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, a view of a brick wall. But it's mine. There are no stilettos by the door, no shopping bags tossed on the couch, no constant buzz of someone else's phone lighting up with secrets.
Just silence.
And somehow, it feels like the loudest thing I've ever heard. I started therapy 2 weeks after moving in. At first, I didn't know what to say. How do you even begin to unpack years of being lied to, used, dismissed? But the therapist didn't push. She just waited. And eventually, the words came pouring out like water finally breaching a dam. I started reaching out to old friends, guys I hadn't seen in years because Candace didn't vibe with them. We grabbed beers, laughed about stupid memories, sat on porches for hours just talking. No performance, no filters. Just me again. I deleted all my dating apps. Not because I'm bitter, but because I don't need anyone else right now. I'm learning to enjoy the quiet, making coffee in the morning without anyone criticizing how I take it, walking barefoot across the cold floor, falling asleep to the hum of the city instead of arguments or fake apologies. For so long, I thought relationships were supposed to be hard work, and they are, but not that kind of work. Not the kind where one person does all the lifting while the other just takes. I carried the emotional weight of 2 people for years, held space for her dreams, her lies, her moods. Meanwhile, my needs were background noise. Now, I wake up without dread. I make breakfast without walking on eggshells. Freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the soft click of your own door locking behind you, knowing no one's coming home to undo your peace. And that kind of silence, it's beautiful. It was months later when I heard the news through someone at her old job. Candace was let go, quietly. No public fallout, no big HR announcement, just a termination buried in hush. Apparently, someone had come forward about her close relationship with Daniel. Whispers of favoritism, abuse of company funds, conflict of interest. She tried to spin it as a smear campaign, but in the end, her reputation couldn't survive what she'd built on lies. Daniel? Still married. Still employed. Still untouchable. She never saw that part coming. A few weeks after the news broke, she texted me again, from yet another new number. I messed up. "I miss us. I never meant to lose everything." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I stared at the message for a second, then swiped it away. No anger. No heartbreak, just indifference. She'd lost her job, her lifestyle, her status. But I hadn't taken anything from her. I didn't torch her world. I didn't smear her name. She did that all by herself. And I finally understood something I wish I'd learned sooner. When someone sees your loyalty as a resource to exploit instead of something sacred, they were never your partner. They were just a parasite. I gave her everything: time, love, effort, forgiveness, patience. Now, I give her nothing, no access, no explanation, no more pieces of myself to patch her broken conscience. To anyone listening who's ever been the one holding it all together while someone else slowly tears it down, please know this. Walking away doesn't make you heartless. It makes you whole. Love isn't supposed to empty you. It's supposed to fill both people up. And if you're the only one pouring, let the glass go, because peace doesn't come when they apologize. It comes when you finally stop waiting for them to.